You know, what can be said about the Super Mario Bros. Super Show? It's a mess, it was incredibly silly, it didn't match the actual NES game at all. Well, yeah, all those things can be said about it. But coming from someone who grew up with both the cartoon and the NES games, this series, it holds a pretty special place in my heart. But, you know, I won't let that get in the way of having a fair review, though, as this cartoon does have its faults. You know, every cartoon, every show, they all have their faults, and this is no exception. I'll be starting with the first episode. Yeah, I know every other reviewer does that, and yeah, it does have its faults. It's not really the best episode of the show, but, you know, it does its job when it comes to setting up the characters and everything. I might get around to reviewing some other episodes, and maybe just some other downright cartoons if I get around to it. This cartoon stars Captain Lou Albano, the famous wrestler, as Mario, and Danny Wells as Luigi. These two arguably look a lot like how you would picture a real-life Mario and Luigi to look. Yeah, I said real life, as this cartoon is kind of like two shows in one, featuring both a live-action segment, starring the two actors named before, along with the cartoon that most of the kids came for. Getting to that in a minute, let's start with the intro.
Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show! With the Mario Brothers and plumbing's a game.
It begins with that classic startup theme after a warm welcome from Mario himself. Captain Lou and Danny come on screen and start performing the Plumber's Rap. Yes, that is the actual title. And to my surprise even, like, I had to look this up, it actually is the two of them singing the song. I thought it was someone else. It shows some pretty unique animation specific to the intro alone. I know a lot of cartoons just reuse footage from other scenes to compile an intro, along with the two brothers running around and dancing to the song in front of a pretty bad green screen. And as dumb as it is, it's kind of charming seeing those two goofballs running around in the background. Though, you know, there always is this one thing that kind of perplexed me as a kid and even now. And I know this is a complaint that pretty much everyone has, but how come when Mario touches the star in the intro, he gets his Fire Flower outfit? That doesn't happen in the NES game. Well, in any game, really. Not that I can think of. Anyway, in the context of the actual show, Mario or Luigi getting that outfit is basically them becoming Super Mario or Super Luigi, which gives them the abilities you pretty much expect, like being able to throw fireballs, jumping extra high, running fast, and flying! Yes, in an actual episode of this cartoon, Mario gets a Fire Flower, just a Fire Flower, he touches it, and he straight up flies away. There's no explanation, and it's never even mentioned again. That's crazy, right? When I first saw that, my mouth just hung open the whole time. I thought I was dreaming because I was watching the episode in bed at like 10 o'clock at night, but no, I rewatched it. That's actually what happened. Anyway, let's get on with the show. One of the shows. So, it opens up with a shot of Brooklyn going over to the official Mario Brothers plumbing office. Then it cuts to our main protagonists doing what they do best, making fun of each other and getting ready for the day.
Neatness counts.
That's right, Mario. And by the way, you have a little piece of spaghetti on your overalls.
You, Luigi. And you have a little bit of spaghetti sauce on your shirt, as usual.
Really? And your shoes are dirty.
And your socks don't match.
Yeah, you got 5 cavities.
Okay, so this is coming from someone who's already seen, like, the episodes of the show, but Captain Lou and Danny, they really share a lot of chemistry. You know, you'd think they were actually brothers. They work really great together, and their little insults to each other that they say seems like something real brothers would say to each other. I mean, I wouldn't know, but you get my point. So they're goofing off when they hear a stranger say hello to them.
Hello?
Hello?
They didn't say hello.
Well, I did. Over here. Hi, are you the Mario Brothers?
And Nicole Everett is in their medicine cabinet. I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty dumb. I mean, personally, I don't even know who Nicole Everett is, but apparently she's a celebrity. However, their medicine cabinet housing celebrities is actually a pretty often occurrence. It happens more than once. Magic Johnson himself once appeared when Luigi was trimming his mustache. Yeah, not an actor playing him. It was Magic Johnson. So, canonically, Luigi is very good friends with Magic Johnson. So, anyway, Nicole comes over, and they have a little bit of them geeking out, because apparently they're big fans of her show. So they enjoy themselves and invite her to stay for a bit, leading to kind of a stupid but slightly funny pretty funny sight gag, and a pretty good line.
And quite possibly the world.
Yes? What do we always say, Mario?
Hey, you slob, that's my pizza.
No.
They goof off some more, trying to fix a sink to impress Nicole, which just leads to her getting sprayed with water, and then cuts to a new scene entirely. Now, for the actual cartoon portion of this cartoon. For some reason, the animated portion gets its own intro, but no complaints over here, because, you know, the rap is just as catchy.
Found the secret warp zone while working on the drain. Lend the princess a hand in the mushroom land. Join the action with the plumbers. You'll be hooked on the brothers.
It opens with Mario giving a monologue with his entry to his plumber's log. This episode apparently takes place directly after the NES game. So, how they got from this to this, I have no idea. Pretty soon, however, Toad of all people gets kidnapped by a birdo of all things. The episode, by the way, is titled The Bird, though you'd think they meant an albatross. That bird that carries bombs and stuff from Mario 2. So, anyway, it turns out the birdo that kidnapped Toad is a really nearsighted mother who mistakes Toad for her own son. She must also be deaf, because Toad very clearly says that he isn't her son. Speaking of Toad, yeah, his voice is kind of annoying. Though, you get used to it after a while. I mean, I don't think it's as annoying as his in-game voice, but yeah, it's kind of annoying. He also squeaks every time he moves, which is kind of weird. Also, while I'm at it, the colors of his mushroom hat are inverted, which I guess the animators definitely knew they messed up on because they fixed it in later episodes. So anyway, Princess Peach, who is still being called Princess Toadstool at this point, asks Mario and Luigi to help her save Toad as she, quote,
Mario, Toad saved my life 100 times. We've got to save his.
Don't worry, Prince.
when did that ever happen? I'd like to play a Mario game where the Toads aren't completely helpless. So anyway, after that, they charge fearlessly ahead to try to rescue Toad, except for Luigi, who waits behind. Kind of.
Polar bear, lunch!
Birdo takes Toad back to her house, where some pretty weird hijinks ensue, along with, speaking of weird, this, thing with Birdo's mouth. It's kind of like Rick from Rick and Morty, but even worse. Every time she speaks, spit comes out, and that just grosses me out. Cutting away from that, it's time to meet the big baddie, the main villain of this cartoon, King Bowser Koopa! Or just King Koopa. His first name is almost never said in the show. Bowser's voice actor, who I believe, Harvey Atkins, he clearly has, way too much fun playing this role. You can just hear it in his voice.
For badness below and behind the call of cruelty, I, the devious King Koopa, bestow these medals of the double cross.
Although there is this really weird moment where he makes a joke about wanting I want my feet licked. He makes a joke where he wants his feet licked. And his feet end up getting licked by those annoying ice guys from Mario 2. But instead of it being there for just a few seconds, like a little sight gag, it keeps going. It makes me uncomfortable. It's really weird. Speaking of Mario 2, there never was a cartoon for that game, so the Super Mario Bros. Super Show tends to mix elements from both games, with the enemies from that game appearing under Bowser's Koopa Troop, a name that ended up sticking up throughout the actual games. Okay, I won't go over every moment in the cartoon, otherwise I'd be here all day. Basically, the Birdo drops Toad from 3,000 feet in the air, his hat turns into a parachute, and he meets back up with the princess. Something else I want to point out, though, before I continue, a lot of the characters go back and forth between saying albatos and albatross, that bird enemy that drops the bombs from Super Mario Bros. 2. It's kind of distracting, but I suppose it's just my own little nitpick. In the end, Mario turns into Super Mario, melts the real lost baby Birdo, who was frozen solid in a block of ice, and Toad and the mother end up dropping turnips over Bowser and freeing his friends. Also, it might just be me, but, you know, Mario shooting fire in this shot is actually kind of cool. I like the animation. Here's Toad using his hat as a parachute again. Just thought I would show you. And here's a pretty funny joke about a cheesecake.
I'd pay $200 for a nice pepperoni cheesecake right now. Who called me cheap? I'll pay $300.
And that's basically the end of the cartoon. The Birdo family's reunited, Bowser's defeated again, and the cartoon closes on a joke about worms, of all things. However, that's not the ending of the ending. That was just the cartoon ending. Captain Lou and Danny still have that celebrity to do stupid things with. Several dumb things happen. Nicole gets dirtier and messier, and some pretty weird puppetry with a boiler, also a trash chute, and a cake. Things are looking pretty bad, although Mario suggests they cool off with a few scenes from the next Legend of Zelda.
Here you go. A lint brush. Got any other good ideas?
Yeah, how about showing us some scenes from the next Legend of Zelda?
Yes, the Zelda cartoon. Something that was somehow so much worse than this cartoon that it only lasted 13 episodes. Like, wow, you know? However, just like the Super Show, it came out shortly after the original game. It only had Zelda 1 to go off of, so there's only 2 Triforces. Once again, it doesn't really have much to do with the NES game, and weirdly, canonically, Ganon can only get hit 3 times by Link's sword before he dies. Wish he took that many hits in game! Stupid Silver Arrow monotony. Anyway, back to the Super Show. Danny and Captain Lou are apologizing profusely to Nicole when she reveals she's perfectly fine with looking like she just climbed out of a dumpster. Turns out she was going to a messy-themed party. Whoever dresses the messiest wins. Is it just me, or does that not make sense? So, the brothers start spreading garbage, and cake, and other things all over Nicole in a slightly awkward way, but still kind of charming, mostly awkward. And, yeah, that's the end of the episode. So that's the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, a really dumb cartoon sitcom thing from the 80s. Has its moments. As I said before, Danny and Captain Lou work really well together. The music in the show is great too. Tons of remixes from both Mario 1 and 2. If you can somehow listen to the tracks, they're really great. You might be able to find some on YouTube, but I recommend finding the instrumentals. Now for the downside, the bad, things you've probably been waiting to hear. As I said earlier, it has almost nothing to do with the NES games. Yeah, I know, I say the full name a lot. Aside from the main cast and Bowser's various minions, almost nothing relevant to the games happens. There's also this really weird gimmick each episode, like, they have a really bad habit of sticking the word land after a world. If I can remember some, there was a Wild West land, there was a Space land, there was a Future land, there was Sock Hop land, I think that was Elvis themed, just to name a few. That, and of course, not all the jokes hit their mark. And if you aren't willing to get invested in it, their pasta jokes can get kind of stale. Aside from the hit and miss jokes, overuse of pasta, weird gimmicks, the show's alright. I totally watch it whenever I have free time, and I do. And I recommend all of you do the same if you get the chance. Pretty much all the episodes are available on YouTube, or you can pick up the DVDs. You can find those DVDs at basically any Walmart, Target, or anything else, in the bargain bin. The Mother series has always been a favorite of mine. Growing up in the early 2000s, however, meant that I could never really get my hands on these games or even learn much about them, partly because 2/3 of them were Japanese only, and the only American game came out on the Super Nintendo, which I didn't have. I, like most kids of my generation, were exposed to the classic games by one of 2 ways, from your parents or from the internet. I have Mr. Chugga Conroy to thank for exposing me to the Mother series. And while I've never spoken to him personally, I would like to say that he has made a very big impact on my life through his Let's Play videos. While I was primarily a big fan of Earthbound on the Super Nintendo, it wasn't until late 2010 did I find out that there was a whole trilogy of games. I tried my hand at playing them, but I was a dumb kid who didn't know how anything worked, so I held off on it. Flash forward to around 2014 when we got Earthbound finally re-released on the Wii U's Virtual Console. First I have to pay respects. I played it, took about 2 months to beat it, and as far as first playthroughs go, I heavily enjoyed it, and would recommend it to literally everyone. It's probably one of my favorite games of all time, and I hold it as like the golden standard for how all RPGs should work. I personally think it's that good. However, I'm not here to babble on about way more successful YouTubers or just better games. I'm here to talk about the little game that started a big series. Back in the 80s, when Nintendo was king and the little Nintendo Entertainment System held a monopoly on the video game market, a small gem shined through the rough. In Japan, anyway. That game went by the name of Mother by Shigesato Itoi. Itoi was a well-known celebrity in Japan, being an actor, a playwright, a musician. Basically, anything you can think of, he was. But he wasn't ever a game developer. Itoi approached Nintendo saying he wanted to make a game for the NES, but Nintendo was reluctant at first, seeing how most celebrity-made games didn't turn out too well. Takeshi's Challenge, for example, was not very good. But eventually, he was accepted, after crying for a little bit, and thus, Mother was brought to the public. It turned out to be an enormous success in Japan for breaking a lot of RPG conventions like a fantasy setting and fantasy weapons and fantasy in general, replacing it instead with a more urban American setting. By the time it was famous enough to ship to America, complete with an orchestrated and vocal soundtrack to go with it, the Super Nintendo was about to launch, and the American division of Nintendo didn't want it coming out so close to the end of the NES's lifespan, so it was never brought to America. Skip ahead to like 20 years, and it's 2015 now, I think, and it was finally brought to America for the very first time on the Wii U's Virtual Console, right next to Earthbound. And at the time of me recording this, at the time of this video, the entire trilogy still hasn't come out in America, but hope is still there. But what about Mother 1? Well, fan translations are a thing, and it was dubbed Earthbound Zero here in the West. And while Itoi himself dubbed it Earthbound Beginnings when it came out on the Virtual Console, I'll just still call it by its original name. That's when I heard it first, and that's how a lot of people heard it first. But with all that backstory out of the way, it's time to get into the game itself. The game itself starts out with its own backstory and tells the tale of Maria and George who disappeared back in the early 1900s because of some dark cloud. 80 years later, we're introduced to Ninten, who's sitting at his house when suddenly he's attacked by a lamp. He goes on to save his two sisters from being attacked by a lamp and a doll, and when the doll he starts playing an odd melody, he gets a call from his dad to go into the basement to retrieve his great-grandpa's diary, and is told it's time for him to go on a little adventure. So you leave your family behind and go into town, where apparently zombies are running havoc, a little girl's missing, and the mayor is a coward. So Ninten fiercely goes in the graveyard to save the girl and become the hero of the town. After saving the girl known as Pippi, the mayor gives you a key to the zoo, where you go out and find another one of those melodies that was in the doll. After you go to the zoo, you visit a village of talking canaries and get another melody, a dark cave, a factory, and you visit the magical world known as Magican. Magican is like this Magic Kingdom country kind of thing that's like kind of in the sky, but kind of in the middle of the ocean, because you meet a cat that swims, implying it's in the water, or they're swimming in the sky. Either way, you meet in Magican, there's a castle, and inside the castle you meet Her Majesty Queen Mary, who tells you to gather 8 melodies to help her restore her memory. By that point, because it's so early on in the game, you've already gotten 3 out of the 8 anyway, so you continue on. Once you leave Magicant, you find an elementary school where everyone is talking about some wimp named Lloyd, who they just love to pick on. After a nice chat with the janitor who just wants his wife to appreciate him, you meet Lloyd, who's hiding on the roof of the school in a trash can. Lloyd is a white-haired boy in a red shirt with goofy swirly glasses who is apparently a total genius. He accepts your offer of friendship, but he wants a bottle rocket from a nearby factory so that he can clear the train tracks so the story can move on, so that he can prove that he's helpful. You get the bottle rocket, Lloyd joins you, and together the two of you ride it into the town of Snowman on a train. There you meet the girl in a church who is named Anna. Anna is missing her mother and is hiding inside the church with her dad because the town is overrun with harshly leveled enemies, so they can't get away. Turns out, the thing that attacked Ninten's house wasn't a poltergeist like how some of the townspeople thought, but instead the work of something much more evil. And whatever it is, has been kidnapping the parents of children and attacking people's houses all over America. So you give Anna back her lost hat, and she joins you on your quest. After traveling through some more caves, some overrun towns, and a desert, the plot decides to pick back up again when you find Youngtown. Youngtown is like some Lord of the Flies kind of stuff, and it's set up in the middle of the woods and it's run by children. It's guarded with giant wooden spikes, and it's pretty messed up actually. Inside the town is nothing but children, a doctor, and a psychic baby who sings another melody for you and teaches you the power of teleportation. How a baby knows it, I have no idea. Why it's so late in the game, I have also no idea. The kids in the town say they saw aliens take their parents away to the faraway mountain, Mount Itoy. So, along with gathering all 8 melodies, you now have to save the parents of these children. The plot dies again until it's revived by going to the most northern town, and coincidentally the last town in the game, LA, or Elay, or Ellie, or LA. This is the typical big city setting, contrast to all the smaller towns visited earlier in the game. The streets are overrun by the Blah Blah gang and their leader Teddy. After going to a nightclub and all 3 of your party members perform on stage, Teddy himself appears and picks a fight with you. After about 3 turns, however, he realizes that 1, it's not right to fight kids, and 2, we're tougher than we look and he'd like to join us on an adventure and to have us join his gang, but he realizes that would be bad, so he doesn't ask the second part. Teddy explains that he wants revenge on the aliens because he killed his parents. So after making fun of Lloyd, he joins your party and replaces him as your 3rd member, while Lloyd stays in LA. Teddy joins you, who is the strongest party member. He can basically one-shot every enemy in the game. While Ninten fights with bats, Anna with frying pans, Lloyd with laser guns and all that kind of stuff, Teddy fights with knives and swords with his ultimate weapon being a goddamn samurai sword. With Teddy by your side, you go through a forest and begin the trek up Mount Itoy. There you find the toughest enemies in the game, and each character's ultimate weapon. Once you get near the middle of the mountain, you stop by a cabin where you can heal your party, because I know how awful it is up there, and you're gonna die every 5 seconds. So you're gonna need all the healing you can get. However, unlike most healing houses, this one is special. Once you step inside, Teddy immediately proclaims that he has some phone calls to make, and that we should go in the next room. Once inside, Anna declares that she has fallen in love with Ninten after their travels together, and they share a sweet moment where they dance. Dance by NES standards, anyway. This moment is interrupted, however, when a giant robot bursts into the cabin and attacks out of nowhere. It has infinite defense, and no matter what you do, you can't win. It's basically one of those forced losses. But before you die, Lloyd comes back in a tank and blasts the robot to pieces, subsequently blasting Ninten, Anna, and Teddy as well off the side of the mountain. And you're sent back to a doctor's house at the very beginning of the mountain, back in the forest before the entrance. Once you wake up, though, you find Teddy's body on a bed with everyone surrounding him. He asks you to carry on without him and avenge his parents, and he passes out right after that. You can't speak to him anymore in-game. Goodbyes are said, and Lloyd rejoins your party, and together, the 3 of you make it back to where you were, which is even harder now because you don't have Teddy to one-shot most enemies, and continue the mission. Eventually, and I do mean eventually, you'll find an underground lab underneath a lake, devoid of all enemies, but you will meet the robot, Eve, who was built by Ninten's great-great-grandfather, or just great-grandfather, for the purpose of defending Ninten and helping save the world. However, right after you wake her up, the lab explodes and you get washed up on shore. However, Eve still survived the lab explosion, and now towers over you, and you have 4 party members. Something that normally can't happen due to hardware constraints. Well, I suppose Dragon's Quest had 4 party members. So did the original Final Fantasy, I think. But it goes into my next point, which is kind of a side point. The cartridge for Earthbound Beginnings, or Earthbound 0, is jam-packed with content more so than most cartridges. Stuff like extra music and all that. Eve can one-shot every single enemy in the game, no matter how strong they are, and if I were you, I'd take care to grind some enemies because you will need it. However, all good things must come to an end, as you meet yet another giant robot. This time, however, you can't get hurt in this fight. Eve absorbs all damage for you, and fights as well. While Eve manages to destroy the robot, she's killed in the process. In her dying words, she tells you that she has the 7th melody, and that if you missed any, you have to use them to save the world. She performs the 7th melody for you, and dies right there. Not too long afterwards, you find yourself at the very top of Mount Etoy, where Ninten's great-grandfather's tombstone is located. The tombstone has some kind of holographic message inside of it, and tells you that it is indeed Ninten's great-grandfather speaking. He says that he's proud of Ninten, and that he was buried with the final piece of the melody. After he gives it to you, you're transported to Magicant for the very last time. There, you know what you have to do, so you meet Queen Mary and perform all 8 melodies. However, once the song is over, all her memories are in fact restored to her, but she realizes that she is in fact Maria, wife of George and great-grandmother to Ninten. She tells of Gigu, the alien that abducted her and George back in the early 1900s. She says how she loved him like her own son and deeply cared for him, and that the 8 melodies you performed were the lullaby she would sing to him as a child, and how he grew to hate the song for some reason. How she became Queen of Magicant is never said, though she wishes luck to Ninten and proclaims that she's finally coming home to George. Magicant crumbles to dust, and soon you're standing in the rubble of her castle, and after that, you're immediately sent back to George's tombstone with no other obstacles in your way. And after going through one more long stretch of cave, you find a room full of weird pods, like some kind of science fiction movie. And inside the pods are every single child's stolen parents, including Anna's. They're all here. Gigu took them all. All that's left is to take on Gigu and save the world. And at the edge of the mountain, Gigu himself and his massive ship appears. And he's right there in front of you, inside his pod. And the battle starts. It's kind of a battle, anyway. All that plays throughout the fight with him is some eerie few notes on loop constantly, and it might get annoying, but definitely sets an atmosphere. During the battle, he tells of how he loved Maria, but couldn't trust George, who had stolen the secrets of his people's power, known as PSI. George apparently betrayed the aliens that kidnapped him against his will as if they were great friends, so obviously, Gigu's really hurt by this. Gigu declared that all of humanity was to suffer and ruin for George's actions, and he left Earth to prepare a battle plan. George somehow managed to return to America, but Maria didn't, and somehow ended up in Magicant. He offers to save Ninten, and only him, from the destruction of humanity, and obviously that doesn't happen, and Gigu continues to attack the 3 kids. And fighting him does actually nothing. Can't win the fight by actually damage him. It's much better to constantly heal your party and buff up your defense, as his attacks hurt hard, and once his monologue is over, you're presented with a new option that replaces run, which is sing. After performing sing about 11 or 12 times, honestly I lose track, Gigu's defeated and runs off, swearing revenge on Ninten and his whole family. His ship flies away to reveal that he was even bigger than its initial appearance, and he leaves. After that, the credits roll and everything wraps up nicely. Even Teddy is revealed to be alive and well, who now performs frequently at the club in LA. Still hangs out with Ninten on occasion. At the end of the credits, however, an image of a man in a trench coat telephoning his son at night appears. You don't get to see his face, but it's implied that's Ninten's father, informing him that something new has come up. Either take this as Ninten's father, or Ness's father, trying to tell him the events of Earthbound are about to take place. I personally always assume the latter. After you beat the game, you get a nice little cutscene of Ninten finally speaking out loud and taking a well-deserved nap, followed by a cast of characters thing with every sprite and character coming on screen and presenting themselves. But now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of the game, which entails the gameplay and presentation. And this is where it kind of gets bad. Earthbound Zero is obviously an NES game in both looks and sound, and unfortunately, it doesn't hold up that well to other NES games at the time, such as Kirby's Adventure. The colors can look very washed out at times, and unlike its much prettier younger siblings, the battle screens have completely black backgrounds, no color to them whatsoever, which is something the series is recognized for, all the psychedelic backgrounds. But This game doesn't have those. The enemy sprites are in color, at least. Another thing, the order in which you obtain the 8 abilities can vary, because this can quickly turn into one of those where do I go kind of games, if you weren't following a walkthrough. Even I have trouble with this game sometimes, and I must have played like 1,000,000 times. It's really annoying, to be honest. It's also hard to pick up where you left off if you haven't played in a while, because the game gives no context clues when you start it up again. Everyone just says the same thing. Backtracking, that's also an issue. The ability to teleport doesn't come later into the game when you meet that stupid baby, so you have to walk everywhere, which is really annoying, especially when I get to my next point. Random encounters. They're a huge problem. I understand that it came out on the NES, so technology was limited, but there's no form of leeway to these things. These legitimately are the textbook case of random encounters. You can get into a fight seconds after you finish one. There's no leeway. Just like in Pokemon games, turning in place counts as a step. It's not like other games where after you get into a fight, you blink for a little bit to make yourself invincible. No, you can get from battle to battle instantly, no mercy whatsoever. That is, unless you buy the repel ring in Magicant, but that wears off. No matter how strong you become, you can still get into encounters with level 1 enemies too. Speaking of enemies, they can totally blindside you if you aren't prepared. Just in the very first town, you can get a game over because all the enemies are random. Not to mention the brutal enemies in the graveyard. Shoutouts to that stupid zombie gang member. At least when you save Pippi, she can level up faster and help you fight. But no, she goes away, so you're stuck being yourself, all alone to fight the zoo and in the Canary Village. Until you get Lloyd, you're all alone to fight these things. Oh, speaking of Lloyd, every time you get a new party member, they start at level 1. You have to grind enemies in Magicant or anywhere else to help them level up fast. Oh, and if they die mid-battle or right before you win, too bad, they don't earn any experience points, and you have to go to a hospital, heal them, and do everything all over again. Oh, don't even get me started on Anna, because unlike Paula, who gets better and starts out with really good PSI attacks, Anna is a horrible party member from start to finish. She never gets any better. Not to mention, did you know that her joining you is completely optional? Yeah, it's never said in-game that you have to have her join you. You can just skip Snowman altogether and beat the game with Ninten and Lloyd. Don't even get me started on how much a punch in the dick Mounty Toy is, because basically, it's impossible if all your party members aren't over level 30. Because trust me, you will die a lot. But, all those negatives aside, I want to address the positives before I wrap this video up. The music in the game, obviously, is very good, along with the story being very good as well. There are all kinds of just little moments in this game that are very wholesome, such as the fisherman in LA who just wants someone to listen to his fishing stories and fully heals you if you choose to listen to him. Or the janitor in Lloyd's school who you give some kind of semi-therapy to someone who just wants to grow old with his wife. The game is filled with stuff like that, nice little moments. This whole game is nice one big moment, aside from the obvious blemishes anyway. Do I think the game holds up nowadays? I'd say yes if you were in it for the story and music. The gameplay can get tiresome fast, especially if you aren't a fan of RPGs in general. But other than that, I'd say just watch a walkthrough on YouTube. Playing it through in person can get kind of annoying if I can be honest. But still, I really enjoy this game. Would I recommend it? Yes, if you wanted to support the Mother series. No, if you want to actually play it. I just play it on an emulator, honestly. There's actually a great ROM hack out there called Earthbound Zero Fixed. It tunes down enemy difficulty and increases the EXP and money you get from fights, and generally makes the game more playable, actually. But, other than that, that about wraps up the review. I hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to more reviews. I will be over here in the corner, waiting for Mother 3 to come out in the West. It's coming for the Switch any day now. Yeah. Well, it's almost Halloween, and you know what that means. Time for some really spooky stuff. What kind of spooky stuff? Well, Super Mario, of course. What else comes to mind? Mario. He's Nintendo's flagship boy. He saved the video game market after the crash in 1983, but you already knew this. What can be said about Mario himself, though? He's a nice guy, yeah. He's got a fierce personality in the RPGs and comics, and How he usually goes out, though, is that he's a mostly silent guy. Pretty nice. He occasionally shows some emotion. He beats up the big bad dad, saves his girlfriend, and goes home to eat some pasta or something. What about his other half? It is the Super Mario Brothers, after all. Yeah, Luigi's who I'm talking about. He's the guy that cleans up all Mario's messes whenever he's done. But he never really gets the credit for it. Sure, there's like a few toes or something who will congratulate him, but those are few and far between. Unfortunately, it's become a bit of a running joke with Nintendo that everyone just hates Luigi for some reason. I mean, sure, there's a lot to go off of. He's a bit of a coward. He doesn't really look like his brother at all. He's a pretty lanky guy. He cries a lot and generally doesn't want to do anything. Luigi has always been the odd one out. While Mario stops a bad guy, saves the girl, Luigi makes lunch, occasionally hangs out with his girlfriend, that is whenever Nintendo allows him to see her. When it comes to personality, yeah, Luigi's a bit of a scaredy cat, but there's more to that in this guy. He's surprisingly brave at times and is very competitive. He takes great pride in his mustache and tends to fight anyone who makes fun of it. He complains a lot when Mario doesn't take him on adventures and has wanted to leave his brother's shadow for years. Recently, he's gained quite the following. He's certainly made a name for himself with the fantastic RPG roles he's in, his personality in Smash Bros., of course, his own game series. That's what I really want to talk about here today. After all, it is October, and as I said before, Halloween is right around the corner. What better time to talk about my favorite game of all time? However, if I can, I'm cutting back to Mario really quick. Think about the kinds of enemies he fights. Loud, angry fathers, loud, angry turtle children, some Goombas, some fire guys, some caterpillars. Meanwhile, Luigi deals stuff like this on a regular basis. Luigi's Mansion. That's what I'm here to talk about. While there are only 2 games in this series, and the other one I'll get to later, I want to focus on this game first. It was a launch title for the Nintendo GameCube, making this the very first game in the GameCube's library. It was unfortunately skipped out on because it wasn't the next Mario 64. While we technically got that a few years later with Mario Sunshine, some fans wanted that game first. I am, however, very happy with how things turned out, as it's Luigi's time to shine. And in this game, you, obviously, take control of Luigi and enter a haunted mansion. Allow me to start with the story first. Okay, so now, this is what I really like about games from the GameCube era. If you wanted a story, you had to read the manual. I actually still have the manual in my case for the game, and with the Nintendo Power Ad that comes with it. I miss you. Allow me to read it for you, if you please. One day, Luigi got a letter in the mail that informed him of a spectacular prize he had won in a contest he hadn't even entered. Calling Mario on the phone, Luigi told his brother what had happened. "Hey Mario, I've won myself a big mansion. Meet me there and we'll celebrate," he told his big bro. Unfortunately, while following the map, he got lost on his way there for a few hours. After retracing his steps, Luigi found himself face to face with his prize, which looked nothing like it did on the map. Stepping inside, not only did he not find Mario, he didn't find anyone waiting for him. He did, however, find a bright orange ghost. He cried out for his brother for help, but right at that moment, a strange old man appeared and saved him. This man was named Elvin Gad, or just E-Gad if you have short in mind. E-Gad informed Luigi that he had seen Mario entering the mansion, but he didn't even get a chance to talk to him, as Mario didn't even say hello, which wasn't like him. Mario appeared to be in some sort of trance, as if he was being drawn inside, and determined to save his brother, Luigi donned the Poltergust 3000 and began his training. Afterwards, Egad brought Luigi to his famed art gallery. Then he told him of the mansion Luigi had won had not only come to existence about a week ago, it continues to be filled with more and more ghosts every day. It's being used as a base of operations for the King of Ghosts, King Boo. He also informs of how King Boo personally attacked Egad and freed his top soldier, Boo Lossus, a mighty giant Boo warrior, from his painting, along with every other ghost Egad had spent years capturing just to add insult to injury. Learning this, Luigi sets out not only to figure out what happened to his brother, but to recapture the escaped ghosts and put a stop to King Boo and Boo Lossus. Alright. With the story out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay. Now, this is where most of the fun comes into play. Fans of the normal Mario games may be sad to learn that Luigi can't jump in this game, because he just doesn't even try. Instead, pressing the A button will result in Luigi calling out for his brother. The game relies on your knowledge of using the Poltergust 3000 and your flashlight to the best of your abilities. Your flashlight is used to stun the ghosts, because it reveals their hearts, because ghosts have hearts. Speaking of ghosts, what would be a spooky Haunted Mansion ghost game without catching ghosts? Ghosts. This is where the game really shines, in my opinion. Catching ghosts is just like so incredibly fun and feels so natural when played with a real GameCube controller. And when you really master its abilities, capturing ghosts is such like a fluid and fast-paced action that can be over in like literally seconds. Luigi himself, he controls very fluently, full 360-degree movement, along with a nice sidestep option that you can enable in the options menu for even more precise movements. Using the yellow C-stick aims the Poltergust 3000 up and down or side to side. While it might seem kind of strange at first to be aiming with that little yellow thing, it actually handles a lot better than you might think. The right button is pretty much what you'll be using the most, however. The L button, or I suppose the L sticks, triggers, whatever you want to call them, the thing's at the back. The L button blows out dust at the beginning of the game. However, once you unlock your special abilities, it'll be doing much more. The R button sucks up ghosts and the other things such as money, drapes, sheets, dust, carpet, fire, bones, pretty much everything. The A button, aside from calling Mario, does things like opening doors and that kind of stuff. The Y button opens up your map utilizing the Game Boy Horror, another invention of Professor Egad. It shows the current room you're in along with every floor in the room of the mansion. Not exactly in great detail though. The X button turns the Game Boy Horror into a bit of a camera, Game Boy Horror camera, allowing you to view in first-person mode. This allows you to get a better look at things like puzzles that you need to solve, and using mirrors to warp to the first floor. Speaking of going first-person, have you ever taken the time to look around this place from Luigi's point of view? It's like a totally different game, which segues to my next point, the atmosphere and level design. This is where the game shines spectacularly. While not a horror game in the same sense that like Resident Evil and Silent Hill are, it nails the atmosphere just as well, if not even better. From the architecture of the mansion itself to the texture work, backgrounds, and music, this game looks and sounds amazing. The game has just has that inherently spooky feeling that most games can't even capture these days. I often stick around in rooms with windows just to look outside and see the fog rolling in. And even if I know where the window is showing, like if you can go outside to where the window is, it still gives me goosebumps. Just that feeling of the unknown, you know? The game's atmosphere does wonders to convey the story when there's no text boxes to speak of. And before I continue the story, I'd like to talk about the gameplay a bit more. While you primarily spend most of your time vacuuming up ghosts, there's more than one way to deal with these ghostly baddies. Throughout the game, you unlock these special elemental metals, and with the press of the L button allows you to shoot fire, water, and ice. Holding down the button will spew a constant stream of fire, spray water like a prototype flood, or chill your enemies to the bone with an icy wind. All of these will slowly, painfully kill off ghosts, which is very pleasing to watch, especially when it's a very annoying enemy, Blue Tremors. Speaking of annoying ghosts, let's talk about the many enemy varieties. Your most common ghost type are these orange ghosts, and despite their official name being Golden Ghost, I just never saw them as that. They are orange. Then you have the blue twirlers, which should be called the blue brutes due to their high HP and damage output. Then there are all the purple punchers, which come in pink as well. The garbage can ghost, which attacks by eating bananas and throwing the peel. The grabbing ghost, which comes in red, purple, pink, and turquoise. They grab you, which slowly drains their HP and make a noise when you start sucking them up, which is honestly one of the funniest things in this game. Those are the main ghost types. Then you have bowling ghosts, ceiling surprise, purple bombers, which throw bombs, I know, creative names, mice, bats, flying fish, and even shy guys. The shy guys attack by dancing and twirling around spears. You suck off their mask, but first to stun their weak point, their eyes. Speaking of which, you get to see their little yellow eyes. And of course, you have the most important ghost, who needs obviously no introduction, Mr. Bones. Other than that, you have the special ghosts, which appear very rarely. These include the golden mice and the speedy spirits. These can appear in mostly random places, and especially the speedy spirits. So whenever you check a room, always make sure you have at least one catchable ghost left at once, because as soon as you miss the chance of catching a speedy spirit, it never comes back. The golden mouse is much easier to catch, as most encounters with them can be triggered by you, the player. However, most of these
not most, but some of them do include random encounters, though not as random as you might think. You trigger these not random encounters by scanning some cheese with the Game Boy Horror whenever you see it. However, it only works when the room is dark. Unlike the Speedy Spirits, these can be caught as soon as you just leave the room and come back, so no pressure there. They are pretty fast though. Although, once you defeat these ghosts, they drop a boatload of cash, which is your main collectible in the game. Gold coins, dollar bills, gold bars, and gems. Gems include rubies, sapphires, emeralds, diamonds, red diamonds, and gold diamonds. Gold diamonds being worth 20 million gold each. There are only 2 in the entire game. One you get from frequently watering a plant, and the other from capturing the second main collectible, booze. Before I talk about the booze, I want to talk about the money. Luigi is rich in this game. I'd argue he's probably the richest person in the kingdom, possibly even richer than Princess Peach, and definitely up there when it comes to Wario. Seriously. You collect so much money in this game, I doubt Luigi even knows what to do with it. Back to booze anyway. Let's continue on with the story. Luigi explores the mansion for a bit, helps out a few toads, and finds himself in a hidden room, where he pushes a button, and over 50 boos are freed, including the King Boo. Why were they trapped down there? I have no idea. But I guess they were sleeping? Anyway, Egad calls you and tells you that now you have to capture all the boos in order to help find Mario. So you capture a few boos, defeat a boss, and find yourself outside. And that's when you hear it for the first time. A familiar voice, a warming voice, pleading for help. It's Mario's voice. He's calling out to you. But from where? The bottom of the well? Yes! You go down not knowing what poor Luigi will find. And that's when you see it. Mario is captured. Luigi holds his hand out, trying to reach his trapped brother. A very powerful scene. From then on, your mission is simple. Capture all the boos, portrait ghosts, and save your brother! Not much goes on plot-wise after this moment, though. Until you find yourself on the very large balcony on the backside of the mansion that stands above the garden from where you saw Mario for the first time. You see them there. They're circling. You don't know what to do. Your only option is to approach them. And that's when, to me personally, the most terrifying moment in the entire game occurs. The dreaded Boo Lossus. The Boo you've heard about the entire game is here and ready to attack. After a fierce and kind of an annoying fight, you take him down, marking you as the champion Ghost Slayer. Can ghosts die? I don't know. Once you wrap up that, the story is put on hold once more, and not much happens. The power goes out for a while, you hit a switch, explore the basement and attic, and that's about it. And actually, it's optional, but you can actually meet King Boo once you've unlocked Area 3, depending on how many boos you collect. Instead of just killing Luigi on the spot like he should, he banters with you for a bit, and then banishes you back to the foyer. I say banish, but really he just summons all the boos in the immediate area and blows you away. Somehow ends you in the main room. Don't know why he doesn't just kill you. But what happens after you collect at least 20 boos? The true final battle begins. King Boo is sitting there watching his Mario painting. He's monologuing for a bit. He notices you and mocks you. He then sucks you into a portrait of Bowser, of all people, and then there it is. But the final boss itself, very nerve-wracking. Took me at least an hour to beat as a kid, because I wasn't really that smart when it came to attack patterns. So you blow off this Bowser's suit's head. Bowser's suit? Fake Bowser. Is it really Bowser? Anyway, you blow off his head, suck up King Boo, claim his crown, and then you watch the end cutscene, which to this day is probably my favorite ending scene of all time. Just watching Luigi cry tears of pure joy as he watches his brother on the floor. He's just so happy to see him alive. He can't contain himself from laughing and crying at the same time. Luigi knows his long, single-night journey is over. He saved his beloved brother. While no words are directly spoken, I think the scene alone speaks for itself. The ending credits music is probably my second favorite video game track, right above the ending theme to Super Mario World. Once the credits roll, you get a small paragraph of text showing what happens afterwards, and you get your rank based on how much money you collected. If you finish the game with 100 million gold or more, you get the best possible ranking. Luigi gets a brand new, non-spooky mansion in what I can assume is just an exact replica of the old one, without all the gothic architecture and general scary atmosphere. I love this game. It's simply a masterpiece. However, it does have its shortcomings. My biggest complaint is that the game is just too short. Clocking in at little over 9 hours to fully complete, it's easily the shortest adventure in the Mario series. Luigi series? Mario series. But, hey, the game sure does make up for it by packing everything it can into the 4 areas that you can explore. But still, it's a short experience. You could probably beat the game in an afternoon if you were fast enough. My second biggest complaint, and this might seem like an incredibly minor thing to you, but it's the dust. The entire mansion is coated in dust, and even when you clear an area, Luigi will kick up dirt and dust as he walks like nobody's business. It's incredibly distracting to me because no matter what, you can't clean the floor. You even kick up dirt with every step when you're outside, or in the freezer. It's a minor thing, yes, but when I start focusing on it, it's incredibly annoying to look at. Oh well. Anyway, that's Luigi's Mansion. It's a gem on the GameCube, and it's a gem in general. If you can, I highly recommend you pick it up. I got my copy at a game store, without the E, for around $25 a few years back. It can go for up to $60 or even higher online, so please be careful. Shop locally if you can. This game is great. I love exploring every corner of it just walking around, which is something you should be doing right now. Just quit watching this video and go walk to your nearest gaming store or computer and buy this masterpiece.
Oh, Mario?
Mamma mia. Oh,
I've recently been playing the fantastic Kickstarter classic Shovel Knight a whole lot, and the more I replay it, the more I realize how fantastic the music is. Other, of course, than the stories, the gameplay, and the level design, which are all fantastic. I'm sure that Shovel Knight needs no introduction, but I'll set the stage a little. Shovel Knight was a Kickstarted game by Yacht Club Games, coming out early in 2014, and is still being updated to this day with free campaigns and minigames and all other free DLC, the way all companies should. The folks at Yacht Club have proved time and time again that it doesn't take millions of dollars to make a great game, just a team of fans with passion. And that's what the Shovel Knight series is. It's a pure passion project. Shovel Knight and its free DLC campaigns, Plague of Shadows and Spectre of Torment, each had their own soundtrack. And sure, while Plague of Shadows didn't have unique songs for every stage, and mostly borrowed from songs from the base campaign for things like its levels and boss themes, it did have enough original music to warrant a spot on the list here. Spectre of Torment, though, had its own completely original soundtrack, with many amazing songs that I have to limit in order to get on this list. I'm here to count down my personal favorite songs from these three games, and with the new King Knight campaign on the way, I'll surely update this list. I'll keep it to this one rule though. Each game only gets 3 songs, with number 1 being my all-time favorite. With that out of the way, let's get on to the video.
Number 10.
You know, it might be a cop-out to put the first level theme as number 10 on this list, but that's just how it should be. It sets the stage for a grand 8-bit adventure full of platforming and secrets. The music here is loud, exciting, and knows how to get you pumped up, and I always play through the stage first to get in the swing of things when I haven't played in a while. It might just be number 10 for me, but it's still a fantastic track to kickstart your adventure into this world.
Number 9.
Taking a change of pace from the exciting Plains of Passage comes Shovel Knight himself. Getting to actually fight him as Plague Knight was like a surreal experience. It was definitely something I was looking forward to when I first played. It's something I look forward to after every playthrough now. This theme it's much more frantic. It really captures the feeling of, whoa, I get to fight the good guy? As you slightly panic, having no idea how you could fight someone as someone you just played as. You know Shovel Knight's playstyle because you were him. You don't know how you would fight yourself. And if you think about it, this theme actually fits someone like Plague Knight, who is a frantic, mischief-causing bad guy. I also really love what happens when you win.
Number 8.
Heading back to Shovel of Hope, let's head down to the Lost City for this track. You know, Mole Knight sure does have good taste in music, as shown by his level theme. And by the way, for a little piece of trivia, did you know that the theme that plays in all the game stages were actually composed by the bard and commissioned by the knights themselves?
every knight hired the bard, otherwise known as the Jake Kaufman Knight, the main composer for the Shovel Knight series, to compose their levels and boss themes. I just thought that was interesting. Anyway, The Lost City is another great track, with greater atmosphere. Really has that feeling of going downward through parts unknown, only to be met by big lava beetles, flaming slimes, and weird blue windbirds. Can't forget the moles, though.
Number 7.
Spectre of Torment mows down its way onto the list with number 7, The Magic Mirror. With no map screen to speak of, the Tower of Fate serves as both the hub for this game and its level select. Its inhabitants are actually much more lively for a castle full of dead people and, otherwise. It also gives off a very classical music vibe with a hint of elegance that you wouldn't expect from a place crawling with would-be enemies. When I first played this game, I would just like mess around in here to talk to the people because the song is that good. Not to mention getting to talk to the Order of No Quarter members after you beat them in the stages, and rail grinding on your scythe outside really makes the whole level worth it if you think about it.
Number 6.
This game's version of the Hall of Champions didn't include appreciating art, it involved destroying it. Going through here as Plague Knight, destroying the paintings of the Kickstarter backers and disrupting everyone else who's just trying to enjoy the art feels amazing. This theme perfectly captures the feeling of pure mischief and just wrecking havoc, perfectly fitting someone as maniacal and self-centered as Plague Knight. As Shovel Knight, you save this place from the ghosts that haunt it, but as Plague Knight, you take great pleasure in destroying the stuck-up art people.
Number 5.
What do you think Treasure Knight does all day other than do taxes and count his gold? Why, listen to this chill theme, of course. The Iron Whale is this game's version of a water level, but that doesn't stop it from still being a great level. This theme helps out a lot, giving a very chilled out vibe and gives off this odd feeling of despair for me. Like, if you were to listen to it long enough, it starts to sound slightly melancholic, if you will, and I applaud Jake for pulling off 2 different emotions with his songs. We're only just now getting to the top 5 of this list, so
Number 4.
like many others, I naturally chose to play King Knight stage first when blindly playing through Spectre of Torment. And also like many others, I was pleasantly surprised to hear this cheery, upbeat rendition of the classic stage. Now in major key, this once threatening song turns into something you would hear at a lively party. I can just imagine King Knight gloating to others about how wonderful his stage's theme is. A much happier rendition of a classic song.
Number 3.
If the trailer theme for Shovel Knight was heroic and triumphant, then Peril and Plague is dark and foreboding. I remember rewatching and even downloading the trailer just to hear the song. It gives off such an evil atmosphere you could totally picture in some like Lovecraftian horror type business going on. It even sounds like something Danny Elfman himself would compose. In reality, it's just a pumped up, orchestrated version of Plague Knight's theme. It really sets the stage up for a much more twisted version of the original story.
Number 2.
Coming in at number 2 is Tools of War, otherwise known as Tinker Knight's stage. Spectre Knight does it again, his remix, be better than the base games. I felt nothing but a sense of action while listening to this song. And I know I've said this a lot, but it really does capture a sense of atmosphere and action. This feels like a war factory, mass-producing the weapons, and occasionally the armies, needed for the conquest of Pridemoor by the Enchantress and her Order of No Quarter. The song was good, and I didn't even mind the auto-scrolling segment and annoying rat creatures. The change up to Tinker Knight himself was also great. Before I get to number 1, let's get to some honorable mentions. These songs I still find to be really good and I would listen to them anytime, but they didn't quite make the list in my opinion. My first honorable mention goes to, otherwise known as Polar Knight's stage from Shovel of Hope. I believe Jake Kaufman said it himself when it was his favorite track to compose, and I can totally see why. My second goes to Both Eyes Open from Spectre of Torment. Actually playing through a little mini-game to unlock your special weapons I thought was a genius touch, and it helps that Red's theme is just as melancholic and haunting as Spectre Knight himself. My third and final honorable mention goes to Disturbing the Peace from Plague of Shadow. The idea of just taking over the armored outpost, completely by accident I might add, was a simple idea, but it was executed very well. Being able to actually fight the guards, the big protectors of peace, was also a wonderful touch. Not to mention how the Explodatorium plays in little rap bursts throughout the song. Those out of the way, however, let's get to my number 1 pick.
Number 1.
Number 1 pick, of course, goes to the best moment in the whole trilogy. This song made the entire journey as Plague Knight worth it. See him finally live his dream and dance with his one true love made my heart sink. Admittedly, things got a little emotional on my end. I must have let the track loop twice when I first saw it. It gives off such a feeling of elegance and love in ways I don't know how to describe. Shovel and Shield Knight got to lay together and welcome the oncoming peace. Donovan became the guardian of the Lich Yard and fondly remembers the time with his brother. Plague Knight and Mona shared a moment of love for each other, one that I connect with more personally than I do with Shovel and Shield. Do you hear that? The joyous sounds of everyone cheering, people sweating in their chairs in anticipation, their wallets aching to be used on something. Is it Christmas? Kinda! It's the E3 season! E3 is often viewed as the Christmas for gamers, where everything, for the most part, they want is announced, and I thought I'd do what literally every YouTuber does this time of year, and make an E3 wish list. I'm gonna lay out what I want Nintendo to bring me this year so I can give them all my money. E3 is a magical time of year filled with skepticism, rumors, fake leaks, real leaks, plumbing leaks, and lots of sweaty middle-aged men that give gamers a bad rap. So what better way to celebrate this glorious time of year than to make a list of things that I want that I know won't happen. So let's get started. The first thing I want is something I don't hear many people talking about, and that is Pikmin 4. I want Pikmin 4 so bad, it hurts my soul. I played the first one and loved it. I played the second one and loved it even more. Then I played the third one and loved it slightly less than I loved the second one. Pikmin 3 to me felt a little lackluster with its poor story, its one save file, and lack of new creatures to fight. It lacked the Bulbapedia from the second game, and there's half as many new creatures to fight. Not to mention how it was held back by the gamepad. Hey Pikmin was a game that no one asked or bought, so hopefully that will show Nintendo not to announce a spin-off game that no one wants before you announce a mainline game. And yeah, I know, Miyamoto said Pikmin 4 was nearing completion, but that was over 3 years ago. What with the Switch doing so well, they'd be bonkers not to push their resources and make a fourth Pikmin game. I want Pikmin 4 to scratch the itch the third game couldn't. I want bigger lands to explore. I want more enemies to fight. I want more useless trivia to read about on treasures and the enemies. More weird moments with Louie, the return of purple and white Pikmin. And I want to know what happened to the president. Why wasn't he in the third game? This next one might not be obvious to some of you, given how I practically never talk about this series, but I want a remaster of the original Paper Mario on the N64, along with a remake of The Thousand Year Door. I would include Super Paper Mario here as well, because that game is phenomenal, but because it lacks the same gameplay type as the other two, I doubt they'd include it. Think of it as Nintendo's Insane Trilogy. Paper Mario 64 was an amazing Mario adventure with great characters, mechanics, great story, tons of cool areas, moves, badges, partners, everything. The Thousand Year Door took everything from 64 and cranked it up by 10, fully realizing its mechanics. Bigger story, bigger world, better partners, better characters, better gameplay. Not to mention, Bowser was pretty much at his best in this game. As for Super, I want them to include it as well. I really do. And while it suffers the Zelda 2 syndrome of being vastly different from its predecessor because it's a side-scroller with RPG elements, it had an even better story, it had better writing, it had better characters. And if we somehow do get this, I will personally mail a love letter to everyone at Nintendo and live stream me writing it. If not, then back to wishing. Speaking of wishing, for my third wish, I want a remake of Luigi's Mansion on Nintendo Switch. I want Luigi's Mansion 3 on Switch. Don't get me wrong, I love Dark Moon, and I consider it one of my favorite games, right up there with the original. But I feel like it didn't need to be on 3DS, and that's what held it back. The whole mission-based structure took away from some of the more natural, explory elements that the first game had. Because, hey, why take your time and explore these really cool mansions when there's a grading system based on how fast you clear it? Better not take your time. In this third game, I want Luigi to explore the biggest, most haunted mansion ever. I want his relationship with King Boo to be fleshed out more, because Dark Moon kinda dropped the ball by pretending to keep him a secret until the very end. Also, I don't want to save Mario a third time. They never explain how he was captured in Dark Moon, and there doesn't have to be an emotional reason for Luigi to be stopping King Boo. If there is, have him saving Daisy. You know, the love interest that Miyamoto always keeps behind bars? Or maybe have King Boo overthrow Bowser or something at the very end and have Luigi have to save everyone. It's a stretch, especially considering we got a remake of the first game on 3DS that nobody asked for or wanted. So it'll be a very Nintendo thing of them to do that. Just to, you know, play it safe. Oh well. Oh? What's that in the distance? Is it a heavenly light shining down upon us, American gamers? It is! It's Mother 3 being localized!
Do I really need to say anything about this? I'm a die-hard Mother fan, so of course I want this. I've wanted this every year for the past 6 years. It's another stretch, but it's what I want, so who cares? Also, let me get some of the more obvious ones out of the way before I continue. I want gameplay of Smash 5, I want gameplay of Metroid Prime 4, and I want a new Animal Crossing game. Now that I got those out of the way, I want a new Mario All-Stars game! Think about how nice that would be! Mario 1, 2, 3, Lost Levels, World, Mario Land 1 and 2, and hey, throw in the Donkey Kong game on Game Boy! And the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 while you're at it, and you have the holy grail of Mario! Slap on some spiffy 32-bit graphics and you have yourself the quintessential 2D Mario gaming experience. Charge around $35 for it and it'll hit that sweet spot of being cheaper than your average 3DS game, but way cheaper than the average Switch game, so it'll sell great on the eShop. And while you're at it, make some kind of Zelda All-Stars Pack 2. Remake 1, 2, Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, the Oracle games as one big adventure, and even Minish Cap. And speaking of Zelda, I want a Skyward Sword remake! And I'm not talking about what they did to the Twilight Princess remake where they just upscaled the textures. I want a from-the-ground-up remake that adds all the cut content of the original game and fixes the motion controls. Or just give it an option to not have them. But with how one-to-one the Joy-Con controllers are though, what with how ARMS demonstrated them, it'd be perfect! Skyward Sword's one of the best Zelda games, par none, but it gets a bad rap because of its controls, and certain entitled people that think their opinion should be shared with everyone on Earth. Well, anyway, that wraps up everything I want to be shown off at E3 this year. Yeah, it's pretty out there, and I doubt most of it'll happen, but who really cares? Why make a video where you talk about what you do want, but then have to be realistic about it? I hope you enjoyed, and now I'm gonna go sit in the corner and wait for about a week for the inevitable disappointment train. See ya!
Junior, destined for greatness?
Huh, seems cool.
The Mushroom Kingdom has a bad case of the blorbs.
Oh my god, is that?
And the only ones who can save it are Mario, Luigi, and Bowser?
Okay, so making this video because I just finished watching more footage for that Bowser's Inside Story remake. And oh, how is it so bad? I don't understand. Okay, so the Superstar Saga remake came out in like what, 2017, and it was bad, and no one liked it because they kept messing up the character designs and the music was really bad. And I guess they didn't listen, because then they started making the Bowser Inside Story remake. They skipped Partners in Time. I don't know why they did that, but they skipped it. And then the release trailer for the remake, people said, oh, this looks bad, because they're just going to do the same thing Superstar Saga did. And the developers were like, oh no, we learned from our mistakes. We heard all the people. And they didn't. It still looks bad. I don't know. I don't know why the title screen takes so long compared to like the 15 seconds the DS one took. I don't know why the music is so bad. I don't know why they changed that. I don't know why they tacked on another weird minion mode with Bowser Jr. I mean, I like Bowser Jr. He deserves his own game, but it's not how you do it. And then this is pretty much where I drew the last straw about this, and I watched. My interest peaked, and I said, oh, surely they're gonna do the giant battles justice. And then I watched the video of all the giant battles, because people get the game early, and wow, it just looks terrible. For one, I don't know why the sound is so small. I mean, I don't know why the sound is so quiet. I didn't edit it. That's just how quiet the video is. In comparison, here's the DS version, which I just stole from Fasaya Gaming or whatever. Who cares? I've taken the time of shortening the footage for comparison because wow, why is the intro so long in the 3DS remake? The thing about the remake is, in Dream Team, when there was giant battles, it was evened out because yeah, the 3DS has really low poly models because the resolution is bad. But in Dream Team, all the dream fights take place in the dream world, so there's like a whole bunch of effects to mask all the low polygons. But with this one, it's so obvious that it's just low poly models but blown up to be giant. It doesn't look good at all.
And then there's the how you finish them. They initiate like weird finishing attacks, and look at the punches. That's the slowest, fastest barrage of punches I've ever seen. How do they make something so fast go so slow? I don't understand. It's so unsatisfying. Look at how slow that is. Look at it. How is it so slow? I don't look at that. Look at all the ridges on Bowser's model. I don't understand. And then it's just another cutscene. I mean, the original game, all the cutscenes were in engine. There was no weird, awkward transition. There was no 3D. I get it. If you're going to make a game in 3D, that's fine. The art style's bad, but whatever. But why? What was wrong with the sprites? Why is everything so slow? This is why you don't do 3D cutscenes on the 3DS. It's because it's bad. It's not optimized. It's just, I don't understand. I don't understand why it's so bad. I mean, Bowser blowing up Midvis is always funny, but it's... I don't understand. I don't know how many times I'm going to repeat myself in this, but basically, I don't think it looks good. Alpha Dream screwed up yet again. I don't understand. Why don't they just listen? Why is the victory animation so slow? That's my biggest complaint. Why is everything so slow? Look at how long that takes. That's not satisfying. Bowser's pose doesn't make me think, oh yeah, I won the fight. It makes me think, oh good, it's finally over. Again, in comparison, take a look at the DS version. You know how you finish giant battles in the original? Bam! You just punch them and the health bar goes down, and then it triggers an in-game cutscene. It's still in, and I mean, it's so much faster. The original is so much faster in every aspect, and it was on the DS! A system that's inferior. There's no awkward transition. They just talk, and he burns him, and it's funny, and he flies away, and yeah, just watch. Just watch. It's already over. The fight's already over. There's no dramatic finishing blow that doesn't need to be there. There's no slow, fast barrage of... I mean, Star Platinum Bowser is not. But look at that. Yeah, it's slow because, again, I stole the giant footage, but I just... Why... what were they thinking? I'll tell you what they were. They weren't thinking. They weren't thinking how to please their fans, because that certainly did it! It did it! This doesn't make me want to buy the game. It makes me want to go play the original. It makes me want to wish that they remade Partners in Time and included all the cut content. But no, they don't want to do that. Which is why they still haven't remade Mario 64 on the DS. I just don't... I don't get it. I don't get it. Miyamoto has him like held at gunpoint in like the Nintendo basement. He's like, "Oh, you will make the game the way I originally wanted. You will make everything bland and substandard and make it 3D. Oh, now if you'll excuse me, I will go sit on my pile of money." You know, I just whatever. I don't have anything more to say. Goodbye. This remake sucks, and it's probably gonna be the only Nintendo game I've ever pirated. Alright gamers, it's time I eventually follow up my insecure little baby whining about a children's game, and this is it. As of January 14th, that was my birthday by the way, I turned 19. My grandma knows that I like small baby games for babies, and she said, oh, I'll get you this game, I know you like it. And she got me the Inside Story remake, and I went in with little expectations. And so far, I just beat the Tower of Yik, and I have played into the Junior's Journey segment, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but for now, I just want to talk about the main game. And I'll say, I went in with little expectations and came out a little bit about the same, really. I wasn't disappointed, but I wasn't like, whoa, they did this, you know what I mean? It's like, I still don't like how they changed the title screen music. I don't understand why they did that. The music they did change. Some points I can't even tell the difference, so I'm gonna say they did a good job with that. Unlike what they did with the Superstar Saga remake, where the music was like completely different. It was way too orchestral. It wasn't like chiptune-y enough. For this, what I've experienced, I'm about halfway through the game at this point. The music is pretty good, especially with what you're hearing right now. What you're hearing right now is the original theme and the remake theme. I just mashed them up together, and I might release that separately. But anyway, I think Yoko did a really good job with the music. She stayed really faithful to what she made originally, and I can respect her for that. But as for the gameplay itself, well, I mean, it's Bowser's Inside Story. You know, if you played the original on the DS, that's pretty much what you're getting into. However, I feel like it's a little bit easier. I've noticed I'm leveling up as Bowser way more than I did in the original game, and I'm leveling up as the Bros not nearly as much as I did in the original games. When I first played Inside Story, I had a feeling which I described as the Bowser high, which is when, you know, you're playing Bowser, you're wrecking everything in like 1 or 2 punches, you're unleashing your minion attacks. It feels awesome to be able to play as Bowser and just destroy everything, you know? But then you go back to playing the Bros, and, you know, you have to do some special attacks to defeat some enemies that would take Bowser, you know, 1 or 2 punches, you know? It takes longer to fight things as the brothers than it would as Bowser. And I think the remake, that's what it was going for. When I have to play as the Bros in the remake, it's significantly less fun, because they love, to me, I don't have any evidence to back this up, but to me, I feel like the brothers get less experience than Bowser does. And that's kind of upsetting, because, you know, it is called Mario and Luigi, but maybe this is their step to not being a coward and just making a full-on Bowser game. They can do it. Mario Odyssey proved a 3D platforming Bowser game would be fun. This game proved that a Bowser RPG would be fun. Now we don't need necessarily to mix them together, but we need a Bowser game. That's what I want. I want a full-on Bowser game. You don't have to fight the brothers or anything. They don't even have to appear. Let's just have a game where Bowser goes on conquering territory in other kingdoms. That would be good. I mean, it wouldn't mess with any main canon of the other games. It would just be a spin-off, so they can get away with doing it. And, you know, it would be pretty cool. But anyway, it's about time I get to that part of the video where I complain about things, and I do have some real, genuine complaints now that I've played the game for myself. The sprites, obviously, it's just the Dream Team sprites reused. They did remake the original sprite. I keep saying sprites, but it's just 3D models drawn to look like sprites. They did redo the original sprites from the original game, and those look good. They fit in seamlessly with the Dream Team style, you know, probably because that's what they were going for. But all their normal sprites, they're just ripped straight from Dream Team. There's not much new stuff here other than the originals being remade. Bowser, everything is brand new. They didn't even give him his Dream Team or his Paper Jam look. They remade his model sprite for this game, and it's not on par with the original. They got rid of his shell details. He's a lot less expressionless. I've noticed in every cutscene and, you know, gameplay in general, he just has this constant, static, pissed-off looking face as opposed to his normal face. He looks a lot more goofy, and I don't really like that. Bowser's supposed to come off as intimidating to everyone he meets, other than people who actually know him and know that he's a goofball. Him coming off as like a goofy-looking angry guy constantly, I don't know, that's pretty annoying to me. I didn't like that. His other sprites, they don't really hold up either. When you do the Goomba Storm, Bowser doesn't like fold his arms and chuckle. He like, I can't tell if he's saluting or if he looks up when he does it, but he does one of those things. And, you know, I don't like that. He still beats his chest after you do like an excellent combo, and that's pretty cool. I always like that. But again, they don't have the same emotion because they're not pure sprites. They're 3D models drawn to look like sprites, and because of that, they possess all the limitations that come with 3D sprites. So I don't like that. They can't get away with as much emotion anymore. As for the other things, the giant battles, they still look bad. I've never been a fan of 3D models on the 3DS because it's not optimized for that kind of heavy things. And I own the new 3DS XL. You'd think that on a newer, powerful system it'd be way more optimized for that. There wouldn't be as much slowdown during the cutscenes. And I obviously, you know, I'm talking out of my ass because I can't I don't have the materials necessary to record my own footage, which is why I borrow from other people's videos. So I can't prove it, but you'd think it would be optimized for the new 3DS, but instead, because there's only like one exclusive game for this thing, then they have to make it compatible with the older versions, and that means the people who got the new 3DS, such as myself, are the unlucky ones, the suckers, so to speak. So I'll admit that, I'm a sucker for owning the new 3DS. But hey, you know, when it's with new in the title, you have expectations for the newer hardware to be more powerful, you have expectations to make it look better. Nintendo doesn't really deliver. Other than like the sprites and everything else, it's the sounds that I didn't like. The sound effects, they have been tweaked with pretty hard. They hold next to none of the impact that the original sound effects had. Like when you get an excellent rank, like when you fight someone and you get an excellent, it doesn't go, it goes like, and that's nowhere near as powerful. I mean, I don't know why I made the sound effect, I can just show you. You see what I mean? That's not as powerful. That you don't think, yes, excellent, I'm so strong. You think, yeah, excellent, I tapped the button at the correct time. You know, it just doesn't hold the same impact. It's not as epic, it's not as cool. I don't feel empowered, I feel like I pressed the button at the correct time. And same with the voice clips of the brothers themselves. Charles Martinet, you're one of my heroes. I have nothing but respect for you. You're awesome. I wish you were my dad. But I also wish that Nintendo didn't bother having you re-record your lines, because let's be honest, I love you, but you know, you're getting up there in years. I'm not saying you're old, but you don't have like the same woohoo that you could. You can't yell as much. So when you have to record a line, how in the original it sounded like this. And in the remake, you say it like this. It's obviously not as powerful, so even the Italianese, as Chuck Connery liked to coined it, so even that's different. They re-recorded that. I don't know why. Every time they talk, I expect to hear the original little voice clips, but that's not so. All Bowser's voice clips are the same as far as I can tell. But other than that, yeah, it's a little disappointing. But it's still, it's still a good game. I still enjoy it. I still have fun playing it, because at the end of the day, it's still one of my favorite RPGs, even if I disagree with how it looks and sounds. I'm still playing the same game. It's still good, But, clap time. It's time we get to the meat and potatoes of this part of the video. 10 minutes in of complaining, it's time to get to the main focus, which is Bowser Jr.'s journey. And as everyone on the internet and their moms can tell you, Minion Quest, whatever it was called in Superstar Saga Remake, it was not good. People did not have very high opinions of it. You heard lots of words like grinding, monotonous, time-consuming, annoying, not fun to play, petting zoo, looking from afar, not participating, and I can say it's much of the same here for Bowser Jr.'s journey. It's not fun. You still don't have direct control over your minions, so you're basically just waiting for them to do their thing. I lost some battles, genuinely, not when I'm just trying to rush through and not really paying attention, but fights where I genuinely lose half the time. It's not because my team's underleveled, it's because they just kind of stand there and they don't attack the enemy. Or the enemy will do some like uncounterable move where they just like screen nuke half of my teammates and drop them down to low health, and then after I heal them, they just do the same thing, and then I'm out of commander points to heal them again. So they just keep, you know, wrecking me and all that stuff. Sometimes they just don't attack at all. Like, I don't remember which fight it was, but I had Bowser Jr. with Kamek right next to him, and for like a solid minute they just stood there. They wouldn't counter their little exclamation point attack thing where you press the A button to have them do some kind of big attack. That didn't come out. They just stood there and got attacked. And I don't understand why that happened. Their speed's fine. I tend to pay attention to stats, but that's not fun. I don't like not having any direct control over any of my characters. The formations I found don't really help too much either. It's almost as if the stat buffs you get have no meaning. I'll still get creamed by some enemies even though I have higher stats than them, and I just don't understand that. It's not very fun. I'm only in it for the story. I don't care about the gameplay. After a long cutscene's over, I remember, oh yeah, I don't actually get to walk around in this world. It's all prefabricated battles, and I just move on a little map screen. That's not very fun. But I mentioned the story and how I'm only playing for that, and I gotta say, so far I didn't finish it because I got tired of playing it. I'd rather play the base game because I had a lot more fun playing that. I'll admit it. I had much more fun playing the base game, you know, and I felt like playing a good game because I got tired of all the monotony in Junior's journey. But the story so far, I'd like to think I'm halfway through, but I have no idea. The story so far, it's really good. I think the writing's good. I like having more characterization of the Koopalings. I like seeing them interact with Bowser Jr. And Junior, if I had made this video like a week earlier, I would have had little to no positive things to say about Junior because most of his character is just, shut up! You're not in charge of me, I can do whatever I want, I'm the coolest, you guys don't matter to me, I don't care about any of you, I can do this all myself. And that's what all his, like, that's what all his lines dwindle down to. He doesn't have any character development. Which he does, after you hit the point that I do, you know, I don't feel like spoiling it. And his character does change slightly, which I liked. I like how Kamek played a big part of the story, because I always really liked Kamek as a character. The Koopalings, I felt like... I'm glad that they have more time in the spotlight to be real characters, you know? I am disappointed that they're officially going with the route that, you know, they're not all related. You know, all 8 of them, they're not siblings anymore. They're just minions hired by Bowser that aren't related to Junior. But it is implied that the Koopalings themselves are all related. They're just not related to Junior anymore. So they are still all family members. They all still just work for Bowser. But I am disappointed that they're not family anymore. I will always consider them as... I will always consider all 8 of them as siblings. I don't really care what Miyamoto says. You know, that's how they were introduced. So that's how I'm always going to consider them, even if the official games don't anymore. And I'm a little, you know, I'm disappointed that they didn't go with that route. But overall, I don't like the level design, or lack thereof, I should say. I like the writing, I like the music to an extent, I like the character development, I like the new characters, I like how the side story kind of integrates its way into the main story. And that's all I can think of off the top of my head about how I like the minion mode. So that's pretty much it. That's it for this video. I can't think of anything else to say other than rambling for like, let's see, 16 minutes here so far. And I'm done complaining for now. So this is my follow-up to that video. And I don't think I'll make one when I actually finish the game, unless it really impacts me in a way when I think, okay, I gotta talk about this. But for now, I'm done. So thanks for listening to me ramble. See you later. Bye, gamers. Be sure to leave me plenty of hate comments.